Welcome to the Tool Hut channel. Today we have another special guest, Dennis Flanery from Ateq TPMS Tools. Stand by.
Dennis introduced himself to you and tell us where he came from, and we'll figure out if we can give him a hard time today or not.
Well, my name is Sam said. My name's Dennis Flanery. I am a sales manager for Ateq TPMS Tools. I've been with Ateq for almost 5 years now. A little background about myself: I started out almost 40 years ago in the automotive aftermarket as a technician, doing drivability style work, and back in about 2000 made the transition over into aftermarket sales. Worked for various companies, as Sam has made mention to, from small companies like Bosch Diagnostics and a few others along the way. Spent the last probably 10 to 12 years really working with technicians and TPMS tools.
Okay, so in your experience, because you're kind of a hands-on kind of guy from what I see, so in your experience, what's one of the biggest challenges you see with TPMS stuff with technicians? And I'm talking professional technicians. I'm not talking about tire techs or beginners. I'm talking about experienced technicians. Where do you see the biggest challenges with TPMS?
Well, with using TPMS tools, one of the biggest things I would say is the new and emerging coming out is going to be Bluetooth sensors. They're just starting to. Tesla's been running them now for about 2 or 3 years, and there are about 2 or 3 other OEM manufacturers that are going to be going down that path. And your traditional TPMS tools aren't going to support it. The other thing that I would mention, but most technicians are probably already aware of it, so they use their scan tool for that, is the secure gateway. Having on the Stellantis vehicles, most TPMS tools prior to 2017, 2018 could be able to complete that, relearn, be able to clear the codes with the TPMS tool, this type of thing, depending on what branded tool that they had. Not trying to say mine's better than anybody else's, but the idea of it is that that's probably one of the biggest things. And having a TPMS tool, so I'm not always having to grab 2 tools to finish the job, is what I'm getting at. Having a tool that would be able to complete that link and make that hook up with secure gateway.
Okay, so on a day-to-day basis, the general repair shops that don't do tires as their day-to-day business, how deep of a tool does that shop really need?
Well, even then, because usually when it gets to the shop, unfortunately, the low tire lights, the last thing the customer is going to complain to the repair garage. They're going to talk about the. Go ahead. They're going to talk about the. They're going to talk about the check engine light, or poor fuel economy, or whatever else that's causing that car not to perform properly. Unfortunately, TPMS is not necessarily going to make the car perform improperly unless the consumer just gets annoyed by the light and wants to get it taken care of. Where we run into issues there is because you need to have a tool that will be able to go in and do things such as, because I find it very, and I, as you know me, Sam, we've played with diagnostic scan tools for a few years together, trying to find, and I'm going to pick on a Toyota. Being able to find on the diagnostic scan tool where the ECU unlock is, just for the TPMS module, just so I can learn a new sensor in, whether it's an an aftermarket programmable, or whether it's an OEM one-to-one fitment, because it only takes about 3 drive cycles with that sensor being dead, and it locks the ECU. And you can't just do a relearn like I could replacing a replacement sensor on a GMC Acadia. It'll erase the old one and relearn the new one in the correct position. Toyota, Lexus will not. So that's probably one of the things that I would say that that we need to be aware of, if nothing else. Whether my scan tool can do it or whether I need a TPMS tool that can do that function. I just find it very hard to find it on a scan tool because it's not real visible. And if we don't know what we're looking for, because everybody uses different terminology for that function.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, I know there's different levels. There's an introductory levels tool for TPMS. Then there's what I would call a mid-level or OBD2 functionality. And then obviously the professional level that does the tread depth and all of that stuff. Where do you see the average professional repair shop in needing a tool? Is a mid-level tool sufficient for most of what they're doing, as long as it's got OBD functionality? I guess what I'm getting at is Top-Down sells 2 different tools of yours. We have at least 2 tools I know of in the function. One of them doesn't have OBD, and one of them does have OBD. So do you feel that the tool with the OBD function is sufficient for the professional repair shop that doesn't do tires on a daily basis?
Yes. I would say probably 70 to 80% of the shops, yes. So basically what you're talking about would be the TP48. Yes, that would probably do for, like I say, 70 to 80% of the shops. With the exception, if you've got customers, shops that are doing a full, complete pre-service inspection, I don't care what it's coming in for, then I would step up to the premium tool. But if they're not doing a pre-service inspection, we're looking the car over, visually looking the car over, bumper to bumper, checking for dents, checking for rim rash, just checking it all over, beside what they're coming in, the car's coming in for to begin with. If they're not doing that on a regular and consistent basis, yes, I'm going to say the TP48 should be able to do everything that they need to do, and complement their diagnostic process with that scan tool as well. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, Brandy, did you have any questions for Dennis? I know we talked about a couple of different things.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I was probably going to ask a similar question, was, the challenges that techs face. But really, I honestly feel like this is just a really good learning opportunity for me too, because I have a lot of, we have lots of customers that are asking me, what can I do with this tool? Can I do, OBD scanning with this and that? And so it's just good for me to listen and kind of see what's here and the challenges that they're actually talking to me about, so that I can just give them this information that I'm here listening to right now. So I'm not really sure if I have any other questions myself, just because I'm also still kind of learning, the tricks of the trade, if you will. But I don't know. What about you, Sam? Do you have any more questions? Because I'm blanking here a little bit.
Okay. Well, it's the TPMS stuff has always been kind of different to deal with. A lot of shops don't deal with it. I think there's a big missed opportunity for a lot of repair shops. Personally, car comes in with a tire light on, they kind of ignore it because the customers aren't requesting it. I believe it should be treated as a safety item. That's my personal belief, and I think that they should go around the car as part of their diagnostics process and just check the sensors, make sure the sensors are working. And if the sensors aren't working, look at the tire garbage as well. I mean, we all look at the tires, we all shake the front end down. They check brakes at a regular basis. And I think that, personally, I think TPMS is not treated as a quote-unquote safety item like it should be. And it's designed as a safety item to notify the customer there's a problem with the tire, and they treat it like, well, just stop and check the tires. Well, not everybody checks the tires, and that was the reason TPMS came out. So I think there's a missed opportunity there.
Well, one thing to say about, to elaborate even more, Sam, on the safety item of what TPMS is. Yes, it is federally mandated safety system by NHTSA. There's a lot of documentation out there on it. If you go out to, again, nastaf.org, and you can do some research out there. One of the things that early on that I found when I started dealing with TPMS 10, 12 years ago, doing a little research on it, because again, so many customers and so many shops in the early days said, oh, that's just a low tire light. You just need air in your tire and move on. No. That is not always the case. The point of it is that what NHTSA says about the system, yes, 100% it is a federally mandated safety system, clear across the board, starting in production of the 2008 model year, which was probably around July 2007. It was a 3-year implementation to get to that point. And right now, when I talk to a lot of national accounts, and I'm talking a lot of the big box chain people, they're saying 70 to 85%, depending on their location, of vehicles coming through their shops have TPMS on them. So that, when you start looking at the average number of cars out on the road today, and every state's a little bit different, that's a sizable number of vehicles, and having that functioning properly. Because again, the law states if the vehicle comes in with the light on, and Sam, the shop owner, diagnoses it for customer Brandy, and Brandy says, well, I just don't want to get that fixed right now. They can, by law, it can leave the light on. But if the vehicle comes in with the light off, it has to leave with the light off no matter what's been done to the vehicle. Otherwise, the shop is legally liable. Now, is there what I like to call the TPMS police out there? No. But we all know what kind of federal fines that we can get from NHTSA if we remove an airbag, Sam, or seat belts. It carries the same fine under the same federal code for fines as seat belts and airbags. And literally, that's out there on the web. You can find that. I can't tell you what the federal reg number is right off the top of my head. I've read it probably 24 times so I could understand it, because it's all written in legal jargon. But the idea of it's there to protect. Yeah, it probably took me that just to figure out half of it. No lawyer. But the idea of it is that it is there to protect the consumer. And the other thing is, especially in today's economy, what are we all facing when we start looking at things? I was listening to the morning news before we got on this call, and California is already at $7.10 a gallon for gas. Okay, Texas is at $4.10. I'm here in Missouri, and our gas is in the $3.70, $3.80 range. We're not going to see that $2 gas for a long time to come. I really don't think so. The other thing is the cost of, because one of the components in making a tire is petroleum. It is a byproduct. It's a petroleum byproduct with natural rubber. Cost of tires has gone up. I used to buy for my old Dodge pickup brand new set of Bridgestones for $650. Same set of Bridgestone tires for that same pickup truck is now $1,100. So with TPMS, we have to take a different stands when we talk to the customer about it. And I think this is where Sam was alluding to, where there's an opportunity. Let's have that conversation. TPMS will help you maintain proper inflation in your tires. By doing that, you reduce the rolling resistance on that tire. 3, you now maximize the given fuel economy of that car. Oh, and we extend the tire life. So, a lot of benefits to this. So this is why shops should be talking. Yes, let alone the safety factor. But let's talk about where it really hits, and I'm going to, it's hitting the pocketbook,
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Hit the pocketbook. So let's talk about what really will sink in with the consumer. Oh, and by the way, the subtle thing is, it's a safety factor.
Yeah.
But it'll save you money to take care of, so.
It's like years and years ago, and I go back to my days as a technician some 40 years ago, Brandy, there was a Pennzoil commercial on TV, and it was, you can pay me now or pay me later, but you're going to pay me. So with that being said, it's a very simple analogy. Go ahead and pay me now to take care of this. Otherwise, it's going to cost you more when I have to replace some tires prematurely.
Yeah.
So this is, let alone I'm trying to protect you as a consumer out there on the roads, because we all know the roads are just getting safer and safer every day.
Yeah.
So
Michigan.
yeah, I've driven on your deeds. I know what Michigan roads are like.
Yeah.
But this is what we really need to have, that conversation with the consumer.
Yeah, I think, like I say, I think it's a missed opportunity for the shops because they're
Most
not
definitely.
as a safety item. The other question I have: so the car comes into a shop. The shop doesn't necessarily do tires. Maybe they got a tire machine, and the cars. What age would you think that we need to start talking to the customer about replacing the sensors if there's not a problem? So the car, let's say the car's on its second set of tires. The second set of tires is halfway gone. Maybe it's time to mention, hey, when you replace these tires, you're going to want to budget in some sensors as well. Or, they're getting down there. It's getting, turn of the weather's happening here in Michigan. With Michigan, a lot of people are starting to buy tires right now just because they're probably not going to make it through the winter. So what's the correct age in your opinion? And I'm not looking for a scientific answer.
There's 2 schools of thought there, Sam. And again, if you talk to the sensor manufacturers, they'll all tell you anywhere from 5 to 10 years on the sensors. And I have countlessly proven that statement wrong.
No way.
Reason being is, Sam, as you and I both know, in previous careers, we drove everywhere. It was nothing for us to do anywhere from 60 to 100,000 miles in a calendar year. And the idea of the sensor is when the wheel rolls, the sensor transmits on a regular, continuous basis. When the tire is sitting still, the sensor, for lack of a better word, kind of goes into sleep mode. Okay? So we need to think about, the more the wheels roll, the more the sensor transmits. The more the sensor transmits, the more it chews up the battery. The more I turn on my flashlight, the more I start using up the battery in my flashlight. Same concept. So what I say here, if you were to start doing research on customer data, even in a tire store or a non-traditional tire store, you start looking at the mileage of the car. You'll see that most sensors are replaced somewhere between 120 and 160,000 miles. Some will last longer because Mrs. Jones, she keeps her car in a climate-controlled garage, even if she does live in the upper UP of Michigan. Or, that has a factor. Just like the engine battery, the heat and cold, the more it's exposed to those extreme temperatures, hot and cold, reduces the life of the engine battery too. So we got to think about that, and we don't think about that little, for lack of a better word, supercharged watch battery is what's driving that sensor. Versus the engine battery that's got 37 plates, positive and negative, all stuffed in a nice little case, and I can pull voltage out of it. I have the ability to recharge that battery. I don't have the ability to recharge the battery in that sensor. So it is going to die. And everybody needs to know, it is going to die. I can't recharge it, and it's not worth rebuilding. I saw technicians try that, but the idea of it is that when you look at that, that's where you're going to see. So my opinion is this, that the average tire, not the lowest end when you go buying tires, or the most expensive one, is about, if we look at quality, is somewhere about a 50 to 55,000 mile tread life expectancy. Even the new tires that come out on a brand new car, about a 50,000 mile. So what I always try to tell them, yes, you are correct, Sam, by saying you're about halfway through the second set of tires. We need to start having that conversation. Hey, we need to be thinking about this, because when we get to set 3, we're going to be at 150,000 miles on average. Yeah. As a rule of thumb, again, some cars will last a little longer. Some cars, I've replaced sensors at 39,000 miles. But these are just some of the things that we need to think about. But yeah, on the third set of tires is a good rule of thumb to start having that conversation to eliminate your customer. Well, you just put new tires on it. Now my tire light's on.
Right, and that's kind of what I was alluding to, is that
exactly
you don't. There's got to be a point that even if there's not problems, that we talk to the customer about sensor replacement.
No.
The other question, and you deal with this a lot more than I do, so you probably got a better answer than I do. But are you seeing any drawbacks to these quote unquote universal sensors? These cheap Chinese sensors. I'm just going to tell you, I've got a set in one of my vehicles, and it is what it is.
What it is.
Put a set in because I wanted to see how they lasted.
Beta testing.
Here we go. Now you're talking, Brandy. Beta testing. Yep. The thing about, and this is what we handle at Ateq. When you grab one of our Ateq tools that has programmable sensor capabilities, like our 56 or a 57, or even the TP48 from Topdon, you're going to see, I got to recount because they just added, we're in the process of adding 2 more sensor manufacturers, or sensor brands, let's put it that way, to the tool. So I think I'm up to a total of options, depending on make and model, either 27 or 29 different sensor brands. Everybody's coming out with a sensor brand, I like sticking with something that has OE quality. That's my personal opinion. Not saying some of the aftermarket sensors don't have that. But if you can buy an OE sensor and it says XYZ brand on it, and you can buy an aftermarket quote unquote programmable sensor and it's got the same brand name on it, it's actually being built to the OE standard. Mm-hmm. The hardware behind the scenes is being built to OE standards. There's a lot of sensor manufacturers out there that will say, yes, they meet OE standards. And a lot of them will perform just as good, if not better, than an OE sensor. But again, there are some that, good question. I think the jury's still out on a few. I mean, that's being very open and not calling out anybody, because that's not my intent here. Because I work with all the pretty much all the sensor manufacturers globally.
Yeah. Well, I bought a set on Amazon for my bus.
Uh-huh.
My intention was to kind of see how long they lasted.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought for the price of them, even if I got to replace them every time I put a set of tires on, they're pretty inexpensive. And I will tell you, I've had problems with them, but not problems to the point that I'm going to replace them. And that's why I was asking. I was just trying to see, we see the keys that from Amazon that are causing problems. We see, just a lot of parts. And I'm not picking on Amazon. I'm just saying typically mail order.
eBay's another one I hear about a lot. People buying OE sensors on eBay for this Honda Civic or Honda whatever, or Toyota this or whatever. When you go checking down the actual part number and go back to the dealership, they find out it doesn't fit their car.
Yep.
Just because it's OE whatever. Yeah. Somebody just sold something just because they got a chance to sell something. Did they even test them for how long? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably stock in a lot of cases, at least on eBay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we see a lot on the drivability parts where people buy the cheap stuff and it doesn't work or makes problems that weren't necessarily there to begin with, and that's why I was just wondering if the TPMS sensors are kind of the same way.
Well, yeah. And one other thing I would like to bring up, seeing how we're talking about sensors, that's not it, but I might show that one as well, is that, okay, the shop servicing the car, and we have that conversation, and let's just say I'm getting ready to put on its second set of tires. We haven't even got to the point where we need to start talking about actually replacing the sensor. Here's where not only tire stores, and I'll bet most, and I would say 90% of repair shops miss the boat. We replace the tire. Sensor works just fine. So our mind is we don't touch it. Because if it ain't broke, why fix it? That's been my motto for 40 years. I get it. I understand it. And that is the average technician's thought process. But, Sam, we've been in the business long enough. Both former technicians back early on in our career, whenever we did put a tire on, pre-TPMS, what is one thing we did when we put a new tire on?
Valve stem.
Valve stem. Whether it's rubber, because the sensor hooks to the bottom of that rubber stem, or it is aluminum. See that rubber grommet? That wears out. It's a petroleum product. It dries out. It weather checks. It cracks. Even though it doesn't get the UV rays on it like the sidewall of the tire or the valve stem does, it does crack. It's very thin. It's under a lot of pressure, and it's under a lot of heat. People miss that. Oh, well, so you got to charge them $5 for a valve stem, Mr. Shop Owner. Your customers used to paying $1 or $2 for a valve stem. I get it. But again, and here's where I date myself and show my age. In 1973, Chevy Malibu, right off the dealership floor, cost $3,800, brand new. You go buy a 2023 Malibu now, and you will pay $29,000 for it. It's all relevant. Yeah. That $1 valve stem has gone to $6 now, folks.
Yeah.
Get with the program. Don't be afraid to ask it. But again, and I have these types of conversations when I do training classes for groups of shops. They just don't get it. Again, if it ain't broke, we're not going to touch it because I don't want to get blamed for it. Get over it. You got to put a water pump on. You break a bolt, it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What's the difference? And we've got this aura about it, that this is going to cost $1 million, when really 9 times out of 10, all we're doing is replacing this, and this is very inexpensive. Mm-hmm. I mean, the average shop can buy these wherever they buy their tires. This style of snap-in rubber stem that hooks onto the universal mount, which is a GM mount that works on a lot of sensors. This is less than $2. You sell it for $5. You've doubled your money. You've done a good service for the customer. Oh, and it took me a whole 2.5 minutes extra to put it on when I was mounting the tire. There are companies out there. What's that?
I think a lot of shops would just rather put a sensor on it personally.
And I don't care. That's not my judgment call to make at that point. But at the very minimum, the first replacement set needs to have this put on there. Then we can have that conversation. Second replacement set where I'm selling them both pieces as a unit. But again, it's missed opportunity. We don't think about this kind of thing. When they come in for an oil change, do you check their wiper blades? Are you going to sell them some wiper blades? What's the difference?
Right.
They come for an oil change and a tire rotation. Sell the wiper blades if they need them.
What I was getting at.
Yeah, these are just some of the things that, again, having that opportunity to have that conversation with the customer. Unless they are a technical engineer, the average consumer doesn't understand all the computer electronics that are on the car other than the gizmos and gadgets like my wife. She can touch this and touch this on the dash of the car, and everything's fat, dumb, and happy. Been married to the old woman for 40 years, and that's okay. She knows that I can fix whatever. But the average consumer doesn't have that ability. So if we don't educate our customers, now we don't have to make them, a structural engineer overnight, but at least point out the value and the importance of maintaining certain things to make their car last longer. Because again, that's something else to consider, is that the average age of cars from 10 years ago, Sam, out on the road, has drastically changed.
Yeah.
It's now at 11 years. Average age of cars out on the road today are hovering right around 11 years or more.
I had a few of those a few months ago.
No, these are some of the things. Well, with that being said, that means people are hanging on to their cars longer because I went and, Sam knows I own a little farm here in Missouri. I've got a 4-door dually. I thought, it's 25, almost 30 years old. Maybe it's time to retire the old truck. Still runs. So I went looking at a new one. And I thought they was going to have to get the defibrillator out when I looked at the sticker plate. I about had a heart attack, massive coronary right there on the spot. So
they don't make them like they used to anymore anyway, so you may as well just hang on to what you got.
Pretty much. I'm too worried about it anyway. But the idea of it is that having, again, so people are hanging on to their cars. People hang on to their cars longer. There's more opportunities to have that conversation with the customer.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, Brandy, you got anything you want to put in here? Any questions, any comments?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess, we were talking about... Huh?
Was it informative for you?
It's very informative for me, and it actually makes me think too about, Dennis, you were mentioning, obviously, like there's going to be wear and tear of just the sensors just from driving alone, but considering like Michigan roads and potholes and all of the patchwork that they're doing in gravel and all this stuff. Obviously, I'd imagine that has a huge factor too, impacting the placement of the sensors or whether or not they're staying connected, or if maybe just impact alone can, damage the sensor to needing replacement.
It's possible. Usually, when it's rare that I see it, but I did one time. We actually had a sensor. We tested it on the shop because we were replacing tires anyway. But we tested the sensors prior, and literally it tested, but it showed a weak battery. We were going to talk to the customer about it anyway. Tire technician had it up, the vehicle raised up high, picked the tire off, and just dropped it on the ground and let it bounce about 3 times in the shop, which is common. Mm-hmm. Bouncing like a basketball. Sensor died right then. Wouldn't talk anymore. It's not often that I see that. Could they hit, a big pothole up there on I-94? Yeah.
Probably, especially if it's an older sensor that maybe hasn't been replaced, I'd imagine would be faster to, Well,
the other thing, granted, I would think this would probably show some sidewall damage, but the sensor bodies are not always this small. We get back in the earlier days, some of the Chrysler ones were twice this size. And it would, depending on how it was mounted, it would hang out higher than the rim would. So the only thing that was protecting that tire was the sidewall. So if we hit a chuck hole just right, yeah, you could break the sensor off and then it'd be rolling around in there and tearing itself up. I've seen the sensor broke loose from the valve stem, tire not leaking, but we heard a rattle in the car. Couldn't find out it was a sensor. Of course, the TPMS light was on, which they didn't care about because it's just a low tire light, but they want to get rid of the rattle.
Right.
Well, again, customers have been, for lack of a better word, trained to come see the mechanic or the technician or the shop when they hear this or when they hear this or when this light comes on and ignore this light.
Right.
We need to retrain our customers.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot. We're running over what I kind of wanted for a goal for our time. So I appreciate your time today, Dennis. And
no, appreciate it.
Anything else? We can always do something in the future and do another one. Or maybe
not a problem.
Training type video. So, all right. Have a great day.
Hi, Dennis. Right. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, put those all down below. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Let me know if you'd like to see some more podcasts. I got several scheduled, but I'd really like some feedback on whether you like them or not. Have a great day.